Hello everyone, welcome back to my session on Python. Today I'm going to tell you about different types of variables in Python. So for this I have created a Python file, and now if you look at Python variables, there are three types of variables in Python. One is local variable, next is class variable, and other is self, or this is also called as instance variable. Now let us look into each of them one after the other. First is local variable. So for you to understand local variable, I'm creating a class called variable demo class. And in this, I'm creating a function. Say like first function, first function. Now, a local variable is a variable which is initialized or defined inside a function. For example, I can create a variable called local var, and I'm assigning a value of 10. Now, this local var is called a local variable. Why? Because it is defined inside the function. Now, if I want to print it, I can directly call this local variable and I can print it. So when this executes, you'll be getting output as 10. Let me show you this. For this code or this function to get executed, I should create an object for the class. So I'm creating an object obj equal to class name, and using that object, I'm calling the first function. Now if I run this code, I'm going to get output as 10. So if for a local variable, the life of a local variable starts from the initialization to the end of the function. Let me show you. For you to understand this concept, I'm just creating a second function. This second function, I am trying to print the local var. Whatever local variable I initialized here, I'm trying to print it here. But it doesn't work because, as I said, the life of local variable start from the initialization to end of that particular function. So first function ends at line number 16. So after 16, you cannot access the local variable. I'm commenting out this. Now, the other things about local variables are, when you have a local variable, let us say at the starting of the function, I am writing a statement called hello world, and then I'm trying to print this local variable. Will I be able to print? Means no. You cannot access or you cannot print the local variable even before it is initialized. Next, these are the things about local variables. But when you're writing the code in the industrial standards, it is very important to initialize all the local variables at the starting of the function. All the local variables will be initialized at the starting of the function. This is all about local variables. Now coming to class variables. What are class variables? Class variables are In simple words, you can understand class variables are variables that are defined inside the class and they are not inside any method or function. For example, I can say class var underscore 1 and I can assign a value of 10 to this or 20 to this. So this class var, it is inside the class, but if you see, it is not inside the function. Similarly, I can initialize a class variable here also. Like here also, I can initialize the class variable, but I'll make this as 2 and I'll assign a value of 30. Similarly, I can initialize the class variable here also. I'll make this as 3 and I'll make this as 40. So now if you see, there is no error when you assign or when you initialize a variable inside the class and outside the function. All these class were 2, 3, 2 and 1. These are called class variables. Now, once we have a class variable, let us try to access them. So I'll say class var underscore 1. If I say class var underscore 1, Python will be throwing an error because Python is currently looking for a local variable called class var. If Python wants to understand that this is a class variable, we have to explicitly mention it to Python saying that it is a class dot the variable name. So whenever you're trying to access a class variable, you have to give it along with the class name dot variable name. I'm just correcting the spelling variable. Okay. So whenever you're accessing the class variable, you have to access it using the class name dot the variable name. Now, if you see, you can access the class variable 2 also here. Similarly, you can access the class variable 3 also. You will not get any error. The same thing you can do at function 2 also. You won't be getting an error. So you should understand here that you are trying to access a class variable even before it is initialized. The initialization of class variable 2 happened at line number 26. But where you are trying to print it, you are trying to print this class level variable at line number 23. But still Python is able to identify this. The reason being is I changed the class name, so I'm correcting it again. Okay. The reason being why Python is able to identify this class 3 or class 2 even before initialization is because the first thing that executes in this in this file is this the 35th line of code where you're creating an object. So all these class variables will be stored in the Python's memory when the initialization happens. So that is the reason, even if you're trying to access the class variable, even before initialization, Python is able to identify. So now we have all these variables. So let us run this code first. So if you see what got executed, we just call the function one. So now in this, we have the first statement is declare initialization of a local variable, printing hello world. Then we have 10, 10, and we have 20, 30, 40. So 10, 10, 20, 30, 40. So this is how it is executed. Now we have written some code in second function also. If you want this to get executed, just call the function. Now, if you run the code, you'll be getting the output from function 2 as well. So 20, 30, 40 will be repeated again. Okay. Now, this is all about class variables, but again, as per the industrial standards, whenever you are initializing the class variables, these class variables should be initialized at the starting of the class. Okay. Now, the last type of variables in Python is self or instance variables. What is this self? Self is a default variable in any function for Python. If you look at any function, self is a default variable. Now, how does this self works? Here in this local variable, I have this first function and I have a local var of 10. Now what I'm just doing is I'm saying self dot a variable. Okay, or I can say self variable is equals to, I'm saying it as 15. So once I initialize a self variable, what is going to happen? I can access this variable in any function. Suppose I'll just go to the bottom of this. I'll say print of self dot var, self var. Now if I run this code, I'm going to get the 15 one. So if I have any variable that is initialized inside the function with self, that variable I can access it throughout all the functions. Now let us make, here you should understand few more things is, okay, in short, self represents an instance. Okay, it represents an object. Okay, now you have self in second function, you have self in the first function as well. In the first function, you use self and you initialize a variable so that this variable can be used anywhere. You can use it in the same function, you can use it in the same function, or you can use it in another function also. It works. But now, few more things you should understand about self is, you can initialize another variable called self, and you can say sample variable, and you can initialize a value to some 25, okay, some 25, and when you print the value of this sample var, or you should call it with self, okay. If you print the value of sample var, you are going to get 15 and you're going to get 25 also. So what you should understand here is the self initialization of this self var variable will change only when you explicitly change it. Okay. Every function can have n number of self variables, and these variables will not change until and unless you explicitly change it. And this 34th line of self dot sample var is not going to override this 35th line of, sorry, not going to override the 33rd line of self var variable. Hope this is clear to you. And again, if you have any self variables, we will be initializing the self variables at the starting of the function as per the coding standards. So hope I made this clear. If you have any questions, put your questions in the comments. I'll help you in understanding them. And thanks for listening to my session. Bye. We shall meet in the next session.